Greetings fellow ukuleleans, Jeff Weinberger coming at you here with a new tutorial. I'd like to talk more about strumming today, the right strum for the song, and in the last video I did on this, I mentioned how that's one of the most common questions asked of any ukulele teacher is, what's the right strum for this song? And my answer to that, if you remember from last time, was it's not always just about learning the downs and the ups of it, but a lot of it has to do with the feel of the song and getting into the groove of the song. And so that first thing I just played, that was I'll Be Back by the Beatles. That was a great song from the mid-60s that they did. And I do believe that it was acoustic guitar that was written on, and the way they strummed it probably had a whole lot to do with the way the song came out. But that's a strum that is going to be used in all of the examples that I do today. I'm going to have two Beatles songs for you and a Bob Dylan song to demonstrate this particular strum, and not just talk about the downs and the ups of it, but talk about the feel and how appropriate it is to those styles. If you're doing a Beatles song written on acoustic guitar, or a Bob Dylan song that was early 60s folk music, that's going to have a certain feel to it, a certain strum. And so we'll get into all that. But before we do, I want to just wrap up something I did in the last lesson, which was we talked about the island strum, the Calypso strum. Some of you know it as down, down, up, up, down, up. However you know it, we all know it when we hear it. And that can be embellished. I talked about how you can take that a little further. I want to show you one quick tip on how to embellish that Calypso strum before we move on to our Beatles Dylan strum. So the Calypso strum. I really like to accent beat 2 on that strum. I like to make beat 2 stand out. And so what I generally do is a drag strum. And a drag strum can be done with your first finger by slowly having it fall down the strings like that. It's not pushing it through fast like a regular strum. It's kind of almost like one string at a time, but in quick succession. You can do that with your thumb too. If you're more comfortable with using your thumb, that might be easier for you to go. A drag strum, or with your finger. Or if you do it with multiple fingers, it's a rasgueado, a Spanish flamenco guitar technique that can be kind of exciting to throw in there too. But just the drag strum alone gives you this. You hear that in lots of 50s rock, lots of doo-wop type stuff. You hear it in some Elvis, you hear it in Roy Orbison, you hear it in some early Beatles. It's all over the place. So that's a strum you're probably familiar with. Save the Last Dance for Me and songs like that could potentially use that strum too. There was a lot of Latin influence in early rock music in the late 50s, early 60s rock music. So there was Latin, there was the Tex-Mex thing, which artists like Buddy Holly and Roy Orbison included in their music, guys from Texas. And that's just a really nice thing to do on beat 2, is to do that drag. So just practice that, taking your thumb, if that's what you're comfortable with, and slowly dragging it down the strings like that. It really puts a nice accent on beat 2, and it gives it that kind of exotic flavor. Use your first finger if you're more comfortable with that. That's how I do it. I'm really using the back of the finger, the nail. That nail gives you that nice percussive, scrapey sound. That is akin to a Latin percussion instrument called the güiro. And the güiro is it's like a gourd, almost like, sometimes they're made out of wood, but I think the most authentic ones are made of a gourd, a dried gourd. And then they put these ridges in it, and they take this wooden stick and scrape it across those ridges. You hear that all the time. That's where this comes from. That scrapey sound is from the güiro. So anyway, that's how to take a Calypso strum and really enhance it. There's a million other ways, but I just wanted to do one quick one today. All right, our Beatles/Dylan strum. That's what I call it, but there's a million different names for it. It's essentially down, 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 up, down, up. That by itself is not all that exciting, but when you put it into the context of a song, it's great. I mean, if I just tell you, go ahead and strum down, 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 up, you probably might get bored with that after a couple of minutes. But if it's in the right context with the right feel and the right flavor of chord, then it's going to sound great. So here's an example. That was the first thing I played, I'll Be Back by the Beatles.